Right, well, welcome to November's meeting of the Cemetery Committee. And we appeared, I know we have one apology, of course, from Alan. Do we have any questions from the public, I ask?
No, we don't know.
No. Any declarations of interest? Don't think so. All had an opportunity to go through the minutes of the last meeting, are they? Do we approve the minutes? Can I have a proposer, seconder? Thanks very much, everybody. Everybody in agreement? Yep, fine, thank you very much. Right, any matters arising from the minutes? Have a look. Give me a page here. Right. Anything on page one, anybody?
The
Yes,
request
Martin.
about litter bin near to the entrance to the cemetery. Have we progressed anywhere with the request?
Right.
Say that again, Martin. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
The request for a litter bin outside the cemetery on that kind of footpath that runs down to Sainsbury's. We were asking NCC whether that would be allowed.
Yeah, to be honest, Martin, I haven't progressed that, but it's something I'm making note of to push on with.
Yeah, I suppose
I've just picked up on it. I mustn't have been at that last meeting, so it's something I'll push on with.
I suppose technically it needs to go to recreation and amenities to actually be action. I think it would be a good idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Page two, any points there? I've only got one thing to just mention about the Garden of Remembrance arch. I have been looking online because it's very difficult to actually get printed catalogues of anything these days. So I've been looking online, and I know Councillor Simmons suggested a metal one as opposed to a wooden one, and I would agree there, but the only thing is, of course, they're just over twice the cost of a wooden one. But I have been looking at some, but I don't know whether we can progress that much until we get a chance to, have a chat and look at a few pictures and so forth. So I think we best leave that one. Yes, sir.
I was just going to say, is it because the metal ones are likely to last longer?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking that with the part of the wood that goes into the ground can have a metal surround to it, which will, extend its life quite a lot. And I think wood would look nicer than the metal.
I think wood would look nicer as well. That's why I suggested it.
Yeah.
But I had a word with the two Ians this afternoon, and they set it up for the very reason that it lasts longer, a metal one. So, but they wouldn't mind either, as long as it's wide enough.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'll keep looking and see if we can come up with something and surprise. But the prices roughly are, for wooden ones, are around the £150 to £200, and the metal ones are around the £400 to £500.
So it's not a huge amount of money.
Not a huge amount, but it just depends what we have in our coffers, really.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I hadn't forgotten it. That's what I want to say. And in fact, I have the one catalogue that I did get is from Harrod, not Harrods, Harrod. Yes, Linda.
I was just going to say, if you find any online, perhaps you send the link to us and we can look at that.
Yeah, I will do that. I'll just send you the ones for the various makes. The only thing is, although there's quite a few companies do archways, they're very, very similar. They more or less all sell the same series. But I'll do that for you. Yes, Linda. Right. Okay, anything else on that page? No? Okay, good. Thank you very much. So, cemetery activity. Is that something?
Janet will go through that. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I sent out the data, I think, on Tuesday, so hopefully everyone's had a quick chance to have a look at it. Numbers are increasing nicely. The weather's getting worse, and yeah, businesses improving. So in total, we're up to 28 burials in total, which compared to, we only had 35 in total last year. So we're on the way to easily achieving beyond that. 21 of those are burials and 7 of those were ashes burials. 13 of those obviously bought a plot with the burial. Most of those in 37A, which is now getting fairly nicely full. And 3 of them purchased plots without a burial. You may have noticed, I don't know those eagle-eyed amongst you, Ian has sold the first 2 plots in the new College View area.
Yeah.
So I've added 42A on the list of areas. So he's sold 2. I wanted to ask him if they, hopefully they looked quite young and wouldn't need it for a few years, because we haven't done the hedge planting yet. So, but yeah, they wanted the very first 2. They bought plot 1 and plot 2. So that was quite interesting. Chapel's been used on 3 occasions now. We've had a couple of uses in the last couple of months, and the surcharge has now gone up to almost £4,000.
Yeah,
we've had 2 quite big out of area. One was a new plot with a double burial. They used the chapel. There's quite a few. So that's looking quite healthy as well. And then the other half of the data really is just showing you sort of about plots. So we've got 7 remaining in the old part, so that's in the 19A row that we created. We've got 32 in the natural burial area, 17 in 37A, which seems a lot, but we had 80, so we've used those quite. It's only been open since 3 years, so that it's been used quite well. 16 unconsecrated. We haven't used quite so many of those. And then obviously I've just started a line for 42A, which I'm assuming. Oh, bear with me a second. I've got Jeff on the phone. Hi, Jeff. Hiya. Oh, in a minute. Let me click you. You haven't picked it. Let me just find you. There you go. Is it doing it? It's right. You weren't on my list. You've only just appeared. Should be with us now. All right. Thanks, Jeff.
Welcome, Jeff.
Jeff's with us. He was in my waiting room. I missed him. Sorry, Jeff. We were just having a look at cemetery activity, Jeff. We were just saying that numbers have improved since the last time we met. We're now at 28 total burials for the year. So we only had 35 last year. So it should be, we would hope well over 40, or certainly hitting 40 by the end of the year. And I just mentioned that we've actually sold our first 2 plots in 42A, which is the new area in College View. There were a couple very keen to have plots 1 and 2, so they've purchased those. And then we were just looking at what was left in the rest of the cemetery. So we've just got a few left in the other areas, and I've just started that line for 42A. I don't know that there'll be 100 plots, but I had to put in a figure just to get the calculation to work. So once Ian's measured it out, we'll know how many. It's possibly likely to be more closer to 80, because we're making them slightly longer in that sort of new area. So, but things are, I was going to say things are on the way up, but they're not. They're on the way down, aren't they? But that's, figures are not looking too bad. So yeah. Any questions from anyone?
The only thing, I believe there are 3 more burials planned for this month.
At least 3, yeah.
Yeah, and one of them, I think it's one of them probate or something, and it may be delayed. So I understand.
Well, we've actually got, this is dated to the end of October.
Yeah.
And there's already, I think, 3 checks sitting in Peter's drawer.
Yeah.
For November.
Yeah.
So that was 3 burials, and Ian's got another 3 booked in already. So we've got 6 at least for November. So yeah. Good. And I think a couple of those checks are quite, I think they were quite high.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Yeah. Certainly, I think they bought a plot with they're not reflected in these figures as yet because they're November data. So
No, that's fine. I
Yeah,
just thought I'd
it's-
mention it so
yeah.
that we know it's progressing, as they say.
Yeah.
Okay, Janet, thanks very much. Any other questions? No. Okay, fine. So updates. Well, actually, we've got updates and then budget. Do you want to do the budget now while we've got the paperwork, Janet?
Can do. Is that all right, Peter?
Yeah. If you could
Okay.
just go through this year's stuff, Janet, and then I can go
Yeah.
through the next
Yeah.
year's budget
That's
later on.
fine. Let me
Yeah, that's
just
what I
find
thought.
it. So again, you've got the financial position. That's up until the end of September.
Mhm.
Because as until about midday today, I didn't have the bank statement for September. Then Peter very excitedly downloaded it for me. So that was very exciting. So this is expenditure up until the end of September. There isn't a lot in October. I've had a look at the figures. There isn't a lot at all. So really go through the main points. Salary, 16,000. That's at 6 months. Phones were at 5 months. No spend on expenditure. That's all phone costs. We put a flat fee. We get one phone bill for Greenwell Lane and for the cemetery. So what I do, I just put a flat figure of £25 in for the cemetery, because it's always about that, or it used to be about that. So because I can't work out the split sort of accurately, so I just put £25 in. Seems
Right.
fair. The rates, that's the whole figure. That's our rates paid up for the whole year, so £459. Machinery repairs, the only thing we've had to date is a little bit of, we've had one tractor serviced and a couple of repairs. There was a couple of broken lights and a couple of, I think one of the nuts had come off or something, one of the cutters. Building repairs, we've just had 5 months of our gas contract. Again, that's on Ian's house. It's about £26 a month. A little bit of expenditure on, it's actually staff clothing. We bought some new work trousers. Must be heavy duty. Subscriptions is done for the year. That's £95 is an actual. Grounds maintenance and tree works, few bits really made up of, I think the only thing that's increased since last time, a little bit more expend on trade waste, obviously because that's a monthly contract, and a little bit of money on supplies. And that's things like, I don't know, could be bits of wood, or it could be cement, could be for headstone bases, those sorts of things. So it's about £1,900 against the budget of 12.5. Electricity, we're at 5 months. Water, we've just hit our second, we just had Q2 bills come in. So that's now halfway through the year. The next quarter is usually fairly high, but then the one after is lower. So we should be about on 600, might be a little bit more by the time we finish. And then the new area, we haven't spent any money yet because that money is budgeted for the hedging that we're going to put up in the new area. So total expend, almost 20,000, 19,997. Income to date, 28,855. So again, moving steadily in the right direction. I think there's certainly about sort of 4,000 or 5,000 in already on top of that. 3 more burials in November. So I would like to predict that we would easily hit the income figure that we've budgeted. So far at the moment, the variance is sort of £8,859.
Good. Thank you very much, Jan. Anything? Yes, Linda.
I just wanted to ask about the electricity. There's £800 in the budget, and at 5 months we've only spent 100. Is that usual that it's so low, like 5 months?
It is and it isn't. We've got a new contractor, so we've got a new supplier. So we were unsure how much the charges were going to be. I've also got a little bit. I need to have a look at it because it's the Corona Energy Group, and I've had quite a lot of credit notes sent through, so that those credit notes are reflected in there.
Okay.
I haven't had the new bill. They billed us. They credit noted me. They haven't sent the new bills in yet. So I think it will balance out by the end of the year. And obviously, if it doesn't, then obviously we can, we can reduce the budget for next year. We'll know better in January when we do the budget. But that's why it's a new supplier, and we just weren't sure how much it was going to be.
Yeah, it just seemed very low compared to what we were expecting.
Yeah. I say it seemed to settle, and then suddenly I got a whole batch of credit notes.
Okay.
So they've gone in. So I'm now waiting for the actual invoices again to come back in. So I would think, let's say by January we'll be closer to what it'll actually be. So
thank you, Janet.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? No, well, thanks very much, Janet. Thank you.
Okay.
So now we go to updates on works and tree works. I think that's Peter.
Yeah, I'm afraid with Janet again, you're going to have to wait till the end for me tonight, John.
Yes.
Sick of my voice. Just a little bit. I think they're just. I mean, John had been down to the cemetery today. The boys have done the path in the new ashes area. They were digging that a couple of weeks back, I think. So that's now done.
Yes.
Got a little bit of some of our budget we need to spend by the end of the year. So there are a few things that are planned to be done. We do need to do some work on both the workshop and the chapel. Some of the pointing is beginning to come out. I think there's also, I said to Peter earlier, I think it would be a good idea for us to have a look at the roof of both the buildings that we have. If they've not been looked at for a little while. And while we've got some budget to spend, we might want to do some maintenance work on both of those buildings. Some of the downpipes might need replacing, but certainly the roof, the gutters, those sorts of things. I think we'll spend some of that money on. So that's kind of the next bit of work that we'll do. And then the tree works, the next batch of work that we'll have done, we'll have another phase of our lime tree strategy done. So we'll have another 12 trees pollarded. That's kind of planned in to happen in February, early March next year. We've got another 12 trees in the next section that will be pollarded. So we've got one complete section done, and we'll move on to section 2 and do all of those 12 trees. I'm leaving it till February, March, because if we have a particularly windy winter, we may have a few trees come down, and we may not have enough budget to do all 12 trees in one go. So it's always the last bit of tree work we do in the year with the remaining budget. So don't worry, we will spend that money.
Okay.
So that's it.
Again, talking with the Ians today, and something we spoke about, Janet, before, and with Bill, about that huge conifer tree in the sort of remembrance garden part. And really, it's got to come down. It just takes up so much room, and it's just getting bigger and bigger, and it'll take over. And I mean, the idea really is perhaps to put a rose garden in that area. So
I think we'd be reluctant to do that, John. It sets a bad precedent for the rest of the residents who, have all sorts. Because actually, if we didn't own the cemetery, most of those trees would be TPO'd.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you could TPO a Leliander, can you?
I don't think it's a Leylandii, actually.
Well,
it's a conifer. No, it's not. I'll have a look at it. I'll get a tree surgeon to have a look to see if it doesn't look very well.
Because you can't really, unless it's trimmed right back.
Yeah,
I mean, it's such a huge shade, and it's killing out any possibility of any plants or anything.
I'll get him to look at it.
Yeah, Martin.
Yes, I mean, well, firstly, with regard to that tree, it does take up a large amount of the area of the proposed ashes area, and I would agree that we need to seriously consider whether it needs to come out. But my other question was with regard to just checking about the work on the workshop and chapel. Are they listed, the buildings, and do we need listed building consent for whatever we might be doing?
I'm not sure.
We're always a bit vague about that. We know the gates are.
Yeah.
We know the gates are, but whether the buildings are, I think it's a bit like, because we own them, we are expected to look after them. Whereas buildings tend to be listed because they are. But I'll have a look, Martin.
Yeah, it's just to check that we don't
Yeah,
trip
good
over
point.
ourselves.
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, just on I think it is a little Andy-eye hybrid, actually, that tree. And one indication of it coming to at the end of its life is branches coming down from the inside, because we had 2 in our garden when we moved in, and certainly one of them was doing that, and we took it down because of that reason.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it's not in the best of health.
Yeah, a tree surgeon would be able to advise.
Yeah, it'll be on our tree survey. I'll have a look what the tree surgeon said when they did the tree survey, because all the trees were plotted. So I'll have a look at what you said.
Okay, fine, Jeff.
Just a note on the tree, as you know, I'm very reluctant to cut any trees down. If we do have to cut it down for whatever reason, I'd like to see commitment from the council to replacing it somewhere. Not like for like, but certainly at least one other tree.
Well, we have planted other trees in that area.
Right.
So, but I take your point. Yeah, I'm like you. I don't like to get rid of trees, but I think in this case, it really is taking up a lot of unnecessary room, and it's not exactly the most attractive tree either.
It's just that we should be able to say that because we've had to take it down, we're committed to replacing it as part of our policy.
Yeah, we actually put in 2 trees.
Yeah.
That we put in 2 new trees in that area, a cherry and an acer.
Acer,
because we thought that we might have to take it down eventually, so we were just waiting for them to kind of, grow a little bit. But yeah, I'll have a look at what he said on it.
Okay, thanks, Linda. I think you.
Yeah, it was just I thought we'd agreed at the previous meeting that we would replace like for like, and possibly or probably 2 for 1.
Yeah, well, I think undoubtedly it'll be replaced, but not necessarily in the same place or in the same area.
The other thing I was going to say is because of the nutrients that those types of trees take out, I'm not sure a rose garden would survive there.
Well, maybe not, but that's just a thought.
It would be lovely. It would be really lovely, but perhaps need to enrich the soil before we can do that.
Oh, I'm sure we would. Yeah. Martin.
Well, just a thought. I know Jeff had concerns and Jan obviously had concerns. It might be worth, if you haven't had a look, Jeff, just going and having a look at that tree specifically, because I had a look at it about a month ago and I felt it was too much in that space. So if you pass the cemetery, just have a look in and see what you think before we make a decision.
Yeah, I have some experience with land. I've got 7 in my garden. And they will take over if you don't stay on top of them. As far as the rose gardens, John, you're absolutely right. They do take a lot out, but that can be overcome by just bringing in a bit of topsoil. You don't have a huge amount for roses. They're not very deep rooted, so about a foot of topsoil and some blood, fish, and bone will get them away to a good start.
Well, it's amazing. I agree with you totally, Jeff, because it's amazing. Because certainly down south, roses grow very well in clay.
Yeah.
I mean, so they don't need to go down too far. Okay, fine. Any further questions on the works and the trees? No. Okay, thank you. So now we move on. I think this is over to you now, Peter, is it?
Yeah, just for next year's budget.
Next year's
John,
budget,
thank you. I'll share my screen if that's
Please.
okay, just to go through things. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Super. I'm just going to move you on.
We
my
do
screen.
fees first, Peter.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yes. Do you want to go through that first, Janet? Then.
I don't mind. Do you want to do it? I don't.
Yeah. Just.
It might impact on that bottom line. That's all.
Yeah.
Peter and I have been having a look at fees for next year. I know we'd started talking about council tax and precept and trying to keep, the rises sort of possibly nil. But so I've been having a look at some of the fees that we charge for the cemetery. Spoken to Hexham Town Council, I spoke to Amble Town Council. They've both increased their fees slightly. Sorry, Amble will, they haven't yet had their meeting. Hexham have done 3% for their resident fees for next year. My suggestion when I spoke to Peter was that we reflect increases perhaps just on the lines where it has a knock-on effect on costs. So for example, I'll give you an example where that doesn't happen. If someone buys a plot, that doesn't cost us anything really, it is the plot. But if someone buys a burial, there is a knock-on cost to us. So for example, if the boys, if there's a 2% salary increase for staff, then that needs to be reflected in the sort of the costs that we're charging people. So my suggestion was going to be that we just put the increases on the actual burial charges themselves rather than the plot charges. The plot at the moment costs £675 to buy. That's slightly less than Amble, where it's about 700. But Hexham only charge 167 for their plots. Jane's fairly new to Town Clerk, so she is having a look at that this year. At the moment, our burial fees are £400 for a single burial and £650 for a double burial. If we increase those by 2.5%, that would mean that a single burial would be 410 and a double burial 665. If we increase those two by 5%, then the 400 would be 420 and the double burial would be 685. That then has a knock-on effect on obviously cremated remains, where the burial charge would go from 230 to either 235 or 240. Scattering of ashes would go from 125 to 130 or 135. And then the only other thing it would impact on are the two things where there is work involved. One would be the headstone foundation, which at the moment is 130. 2.5% would go up to 135 and 5% would take it up to 140. And the only other one would be the use of the chapel, again, where there's a cost to us to do that. Currently 180, 2.5% would take it to 185, 5% would take it to 190. Interestingly, Hexham are charging £200 for the use of their chapel. So apart from the plot fees, all of our fees are less than Hexham's will be next year. Even if we do the 5% increase, they will all still be less than the Hexham figures. So I'm open to thoughts. Do people want to increase fees at all? If so, where would they like to do it?
Right, Peter.
Yeah, probably. I was going to talk about the context in terms of the budget on the next item when we're looking at the rest of the lines, but it's probably worth mentioning here. I think that because there are two contexts really for the cemetery committee. First of all, the context in terms of the broader budget and the probable desire to try not to increase the precept in this difficult year. But there's also we need to consider the council's desire to move closer and hopefully eventually get to a break-even point for the cemetery. So that I think we need to, when we're talking about these fees here, we need to be thinking about both those things. We don't want to raise the precept, and also we want to get closer to a break-even point for the cemetery in a few years down the line.
Okay, thank you, Peter. So
if Peter's saying, is he kind of wanting to go the middle road and go up 2.5%? Is he thinking that way?
I don't know. Hey?
Yeah, it's difficult to, because it's been a difficult year. The expenditure is really low this year, and we've had a really good income year. It's quite difficult. I think for me, if the council's desire still is for the cemetery operation to eventually get to break even, we have to be doing at least an inflationary rise on our across the board on our prices. So it's, for me, it's at least that the more we put them up, the quicker we get to. The other complication we have is because the areas where we get the fees is so variable. Actually, the science behind the number we put in the budget isn't great. So we've probably got a number in the budget that we won't change regardless of what you decide to do with fees. So, but for me, at least it needs to be at least an inflation rise to edge us towards that.
If I just give you the kind of the total figure, because what we normally do is say that currently the standard burial fee for an adult in a double grave, which is the burial right, a burial cost and a headstone, is currently 1,455. If we increased it by 2.5% in the areas that I went through, that figure would be 1,475. If we increased it by 5% on the areas, the 6 areas I went through, that would be 1,500. So the most it would add is a £45 increase, even if we added 5% to the 6 lines.
Right, Linda, yes.
I was, before Peter started to speak, I was going to say that, and I still think the same, that because it's been such a hardship for so many people, and there's a possibility that more people will be burying people they didn't expect to. We don't know, that's unknown. If this all works, then that'll be fine. So I just feel an inflationary cost would be more acceptable than above inflation at this time. I'm in total favour of it becoming break even, that it pays for itself. But I'm not sure this is the right time to put it up above inflation.
Okay. What was our last percentage increase, Janet? Do you remember? Janet?
It was a mixed bag, as far as I recall, John. I think
it was. I thought it was a mixed bag, but I just wondered if we had.
We had different rise and different
elements
to try.
I just wondered if there was an overall average.
But I think it had amounted to a fair increase at the time.
Yeah, I did. Okay, so sorry.
Yeah, I would agree with Linda on this one. I think we have to be careful not to be seen to be, just jamming a figure on. Next year, hopefully, we'll be through all this. Then we can look at that, I think.
Okay, thank you. Jeff?
Yeah, I'm slightly out of kilter with everyone else. I think we have to take a long-term view, and I'll take Peter's point that we're looking to get to a break-even point. So I would have supported a 5% increase. It's not a huge amount of money. It sounds a lot when you say 5%, but as Janet's pointed out, we're only talking about a few pounds here. I've always thought the out of parish costs were lower than they should be. So whether we can weight something onto that or not. But personally, I would support a 5% because I think we should be taking a longer term view. And it's not a huge increase in money terms. We also have to take into account, of course, that most people get government grants for burials. So personally, 5%, but I'll go along with what everyone else thinks.
Okay,
interestingly, sorry, just a figure of interest from Hexham, because the figures we've looked at here are for resident fees, and it's interesting how some people treat their out of parish people. Amble, for example, say that there's a standard fee, then if you're a resident you get a reduced fee, whereas we double our fees. In Hexham, it's interesting, they have a mixed bag, but to give you a comparison, their burial fee for a resident is 649. Their burial fee for an out of parish is 2,275. Did you all swallow deeply at that point?
Yes.
No, because I agree with them. I think if you're out of parish, you should have to pay a premium, and I have no problem with that.
I mean, we charge double at the moment.
Yeah. So perhaps we can weight it more onto the out of parish. I don't know.
Okay, Linda.
Just a question is, does that apply to people who perhaps have lived here for a very long time, but then because of their aging have needed to move out of the area, but will want to be buried when they come back?
Yeah, Hexham, it's a 12-month rule. We have a 2-year rule.
All right, that's good.
But we have been a bit more flexible than 2 years in the past.
Yeah.
You know, depending on, I mean, and we have been flexible with some of it. So, you know, we might have charged them, we might have let them have the plot as a resident, but charge them double fees for the burial, for example, if they've been, you know, 3 years and 5 months or something. We've sort of done that for them.
Yeah. Answered my question. Thank you.
Peter.
Just on that point, I think in the past that flexibility has been entirely sensible, but as what I'm finding as we look through this stuff, I think we're putting a bit of pressure on Ian to be flexible and make sensible decisions. And I think we probably need to review that formally. I think as people are spending more time in care homes than they probably did when the policy was written, I think it's probably applicable to more people. So I think it's something we need to bring back to this committee to formalise.
Okay, fine. Yes, I agree. All right. Is anyone any other comments to make? So I think I'll ask perhaps first of all those people who are first of all, have we agreed that the actual cost of the plot should remain the same? Is there any comment about that? I take that as an agreement that it should. So can I ask all those who favour a 2.5% increase, if they'd like to just 3, fine. And those that would prefer a 5% increase, I think it's going to be 2.5 based on the proportions that we have here. So can we just have an agreement that it's going to be a 2.5% increase this year, and then we'll have a very close look at it next year. It might mean a fairly hefty hike to get us back on track, but I can understand the viewpoints of those that want to keep it reasonably. Okay, so just to formalise it, Joe, those in favour of an increase of 2.5%? Right, thank you. Carried. Good. Okay, Peter, anything you want to carry on with? Anything on the budget side now?
Yeah, so if we just go through, obviously I set the context earlier in terms of the fees. That's obviously a big part of this budget. Set the context in terms of trying to get to break-even point in a number of years. I think what will become evident through this is if that is still an important objective for the council, there are probably 4 or 5 budgets in here where I think we need to do some work to actually, particularly on the expenditure side, to make sure that the physical works that we want to do at the cemetery are planned, so that we can plan what the fees need to be to get us to that break-even point. So the works that are done, with the exception of probably the tree works, because Janet has a passion for that and she's got a good understanding of it. I think the building works seem to be a little bit ad hoc, and if we can plan them, perhaps get a survey done on the buildings and the walls, and then map out perhaps a 5-year programme, I think that's probably the way to go in terms of maintenance, so we'll have a bit more clarity. What's happening at the moment is, this year's a good example because of COVID and other things going on, we actually haven't spent a lot of money and done a lot of physical works. But next year we might need to. So what I've done, I've just put some numbers in to the budget. I'm just trying to move you on my screen so I can see the right columns. So very little change, to be honest with you. I've obviously added in what we would anticipate to be an inflation rise on the salary related stuff. A lot of the smaller budgets are the same. The larger budgets, actually this year we carried money forward on grounds and tree works, and on, which is the other one? Oh, it was the new area, which is down at the bottom here. Yeah, we carried some money forward on that. I'm really proposing to keep these budgets largely the same. We're going to try and catch up spending this year. if we don't catch up with that spend and the works that we think need to be done, we can carry it forward to the next year to bolster some of these budgets in there. So from an expenditure point of view, I think that should be relatively straightforward. Income, I've got a figure of 45 in there. I said earlier it's a little bit sort of finger in the air. I did a little bit of just digging earlier on today, just to have a look to see. Bear with me a moment. I'll see if I can share a different. I might have to stop this share and then I'll share it again. Just to look at what the income levels have been like over the past few years. So the top chart there just shows actually how much they do fluctuate. So I think we're down £25,000 last year. We could well be over 50,000 this year. It's obviously a huge fluctuation, but actually if you look at a 2-year average, there isn't actually that much movement. So 4 out of those 5-year periods we've been in the early to mid 40s in terms of income. So that's probably where we should be pitching the income budget, I think. I've got 45 in on the budget for next year. I'll just share the screen. 45 in for next year. I think that's a reasonable number. And if we sort of stick with similar expenditure, with the exception of inflating the salary-related stuff, and we have an income budget of 45, we're looking at reducing the net cost of the cemetery in budgetary terms, certainly by about 5,000, and that's got us heading in the right direction in terms of where we want to be. But happy to take any questions.
Right. Any questions from anybody?
No.
No.
That all looks good.
It looks clear.
Yeah. So, do we have a proposal to accept the budget? Thank you, Linda. A second. Thank you, Jeff. So, all those in favour of accepting the new budget? Good, carried. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Peter.
No problem, John. Thank you.
Right. So that really brings us on to any other business. I've just got a couple of small points here. One, again, it was as a result of my chat with the Ians. They suggested perhaps we could get some dwarf daffodils just to plant round the edges of the circle in the front, just to give a little bit of colour.
They're in the back of my car, John.
Excellent. That's what I like to see.
I had 1/2 ton of daffodils delivered today.
Well, that's brilliant. That's
Oh,
brilliant.
they're already ordered, John.
Lovely.
I'd ordered them a month ago.
I was just going to offer you a little bag of daffodils, Jared, because somebody
I've got
sent
1/2
me
a ton, Jeff.
as a free gift, but it doesn't sound like you need them.
That's brilliant.
Best way to buy them.
Yeah.
I've got them already, so yeah.
And the other thing was that they're a bit concerned about the 3 large planters and those seats that are just inside the gates. A, they're not quite sure what they were there for, and B, they are a little bit tempting to be removed, especially the seats, because obviously there's not somebody around by that area all day. I just wondered, I assumed the planters were for Narrowgate.
They might be. We're waiting for county to come back to say if they want any more. If not, they'll just go to lock up and stay there. The seats are going in when Sid comes back from Spain, if he ever gets back from Spain.
Yeah, is there going to be room in the lockup for those 3?
Don't know.
No, I doubt it, because that's the other.
No, they can just go back around the back of the workshop. They don't have to sit in. They don't have to sit just inside the gate.
I know. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Yeah, and obviously there was a question of storage again, is the usual thing, but or lack of. But
no, we need to get those seats in as quickly as we can.
Yeah.
On the Sid subject, I think we could be a few weeks off. I haven't seen a return for Sid.
Okay.
It's
all right. Okay, fine. Any other business? Yes, Linda.
It was just a question. Is it still graveside services only? We didn't start using the chapel again, did we, when we were out of lockdown for that short period?
Yeah, we've used the chapel, haven't we?
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
have. Yes, we have.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
with
3 times
restrictions.
this year we've used it.
Yeah. So
Yes.
so we have a QR code up on the chapel.
There is one, isn't there? Yes.
So people can scan into the building, and there's I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but I think there's one person per aisle.
So,
but obviously that's stopped at the moment.
Yeah.
So with the new guidance, it's churches may only be used for private prayer only. Does that make a difference then?
Well, we won't be offering it, I don't think, during this month.
No, not during lockdown.
That was my question, really. Then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The problem we might have, it's something I'll pick up with you in the morning, because the problem we might have is somebody's got something booked in and paid for it prior to lockdown. I'll have to have a look and see where we are with that.
Right.
But my view, during lockdown, then
Yeah.
it's going to be difficult.
And I think we got the Kenneth Ashburn problem sorted out, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Well, it wasn't really much of a problem.
No, it wasn't a problem.
It was a sort of
no.
mountain out of molehill type thing. I mean, a few shovels of earth would have solved it.
Yeah, but I believe it's been solved by a third party now. So.
Well, no, apparently no one's been there yet.
All right. Okay.
So it still is.
Well, we did offer to make some repairs to the,
I know we did.
grave.
Yeah.
Sorry, what are we talking about?
The one grave at the top of the newer part of the grave. There's a small crack in the base, which we investigated. Both I and the guys thought that it could be repaired quite easily, but the relation of the deceased wanted a third party to come in and make a replacement of the base effectively.
Okay, fine. Right, is there any other points? No. Well, thank you very much indeed, and we conclude the meeting at 7:21.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right.